The Patton Report is a Boink Studios production. And now, on with the show.
Welcome to the Patton Report. Today we're diving into the roots of a franchise that basically defined a childhood for an entire generation, Pokémon. We'll be looking at how it started, the original Game Boy games, their legacy, and even the best in-game teams that you could possibly run in Pokémon Red, Yellow, or Blue. Whether you were trading on the playground, watching the anime, or still playing ROM hacks today, this one's for you. But before we dive into all that, let's talk about what I've been watching, some gaming news, and just some general nonsense. So, as far as things that I've been watching, probably the thing that I've engaged with the most, as far as new watches go, would be the Yogurt Shop Murders on HBO, which is a documentary about a murder of 4 that takes place in a yogurt shop in Austin, Texas, that was unsolved for a long time. It's kind of a deep dive. It has a lot of footage from that time period. There was someone previously kind of working on a documentary that ended up putting this out, from what I could tell. And it goes into a little bit of, as far as like who originally gets accused and makes a false confession. At least 2 of the people make a false confession and get wrongly accused, and kind of shows the family and how they're feeling throughout. Lots of interviews with the family, and it's a very dark watch, and it was a little hard to get through knowing the crime itself. But shortly after that, and this kind of came out before I even started writing this episode of the podcast, it seems like they have actually caught the killer. Caught's not the right term. We won't go with caught, but they have identified who they believe the killer to be, which is Robert Eugene Brashers, who is linked to at least 7 other murders across the country. His DNA was pulled through, I'm assuming, some sort of ancestry DNA testing or new DNA testing they didn't have at the time. It's the same DNA that was used to acquit the people that made the false confessions overall. So it's kind of a wild tale, especially how we landed to where we are today. Things have kind of moved along, and these families have finally gotten an answer. Unfortunately, the suspect, Robert, or fortunately, depending on how you're looking at it, the suspect or the person that they believe who committed this atrocity has been dead for quite some time. So no true justice, but a little bit of closure for the families. And I don't know, maybe they'll go back and film a follow-up episode to that documentary. That would be kind of interesting to see. If you're a true crime fan, you'll probably enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's a watch for everyone. That being said, I don't think it's going to be something you want to just put on and chill. It's a pretty disturbing one. Outside of that, a little bit of Halloween. I watched the Nail Gun Massacre, which is, if you've never seen it, is about a killer who, instead of using a chainsaw, uses a nail gun with an air compressor strapped to his back. And he wears a motorcycle helmet. And all of the dialogue is the killer's dialogue or one-liners, kind of like Freddy Krueger, but really terrible. And they're voiced over in a way that makes them sound kind of like Ole Anderson doing an impression of the Shockmaster or the Black Scorpion, for those out there that know the reference to that wrestling. But yeah, it's a fun watch. You never seen it. There's plenty of places you can find it. Definitely one to check out as we roll into the first week of October. But yeah, outside of that, it's been watching a lot of Star Trek Voyager with the wife. It's my first full watch through. I absolutely love it. I think the Doctor is one of the best characters across all of Star Trek. He's right up there with Data for me. I could probably do an entire show on that, so I'm not going to bore everyone, the non-Trekkies out there that might be listening, with that completely. But yeah, it's great. It's been a real fun to watch it. We're at the very end of season 7 and kind of been stuck there for a little bit. It's like we don't want it to end. And then we'll be moving on to Deep Space Nine, which I have also never watched. Watched a lot of Star Trek, the original series, and I've watched Next Gen multiple times, but this is my first watch through of Star Trek Voyager. And Captain Janeway is Man, what a captain. I love her a lot more than the internet, apparently, based on my feelings. Maybe we'll do a captain ranking one day of how I feel about that. But we're going to move along. I wanted to do a little content creator spotlight for the YouTube personality Bind. That's Bind. They did a really cool video in which they spent 30 days in a dead MMO. And a second video trying to kind of revive that dead game, or how they revive that dead game. Both focus on the 1999 MMO Dark Ages. It was a once semi-popular game, but basically he jumps in. There's still, a handful of people playing, maybe under 100 people playing the game. And, he kind of goes through and hits the max level and learns all the crafts and meets all these people, and he puts out this YouTube video, and the thing takes off. I think last time I looked at it, it was over 2 million views. But the videos are just completely wholesome and worth a watch. I wanted to give them a little bit of shout out. They did get a big influx of new people coming to the game, and it kind of was a little overwhelming for them. There's the publisher trying to do stuff with the game now. I mean, the servers have been up forever, and that publisher hasn't really released any updates for this community that's been paying $15 a month to continue keeping this game up and running. I think it was either 10 or 15 bucks. But yeah, it's just a small knit community that's been, stuck around. It kind of reminds me of playing stuff like Gaia Online or EverQuest 2, that kind of thing, but the community being a lot smaller, obviously it hasn't gotten as much love. So it's very unique, very fun watch for anyone out there looking for something to kind of kill some time with on YouTube. Now, once again, that's Bind, and it's I spent 30 days in a dead MMO, and the follow-up video is So I Kind of Revived a Dead Game. So check those out when you get a chance. I think you'll dig it. For some gaming news, Forza Horizon 6 set in Japan is coming to Xbox PC with a PS5 release, which is the first time that's happened in quite a while post-launch. But the trailer shows Tokyo and other Japanese locales. No gameplay yet. I would expect some delays with playground game projects kind of causing some issues there. They're also working on Star Sand, which is a Stardew style cozy game, if I'm not mistaken. That's supposed to launch February 1st, 2026. The demo for that is actually out next week after the show airs, so October 12th. If you're looking for a new Stardew Valley game, this is probably what you're looking for. It's a comfy, cozy game. Think your Animal Crossing, Stardew Valley, those kind of games. That's what it is. I know a lot of people have really enjoyed those lately. As far as Nintendo Switch Online goes, they're adding 2 GBA titles, Clona, Empire of Dreams, and Mr. Driller 2. I've never played either of those games, but just thought I'd throw it in the news. That seems to be the 2 big additions for the Game Boy Advance for Nintendo Switch Online. If you have a Switch 2, you probably have a Nintendo Switch Online at this point. Otherwise, I don't know what you're really playing. Kind of some big ads for Xbox Game Pass. We have Peppa Pig World Adventure. So if you got kids who are into Peppa Pig, that's out there. And Visions of Mana. Highly recommend Visions of Mana. I think it's phenomenal. So if you haven't played it yet, if you've never played any of the Secret of Mana or any of those games, it's a good place to start. And then some upcoming day one releases. We had Ninja Gaiden 4 and The Outer Worlds 2. Ninja Gaiden 4 is coming out on October 21st, and The Outer Worlds 2 is coming out on October 29th. And I didn't forget about the PlayStation players out there. You're getting some new games on PlayStation Plus on October 7th, so they're already out by the time you're hearing this. But Alan Wake 2, Cocoon, and Goat Simulator 3 will all be available to you guys. And some kind of just fun news. Kojima recently did an interview. Hideo Kojima of Metal Gear Solid fame had just recently done an interview where he says for this new horror game that he is working on, he is planning on doing some ghost hunting. So the idea is that he wants to actually be able to put real-life evidence of a ghost into his new game. And if there's anyone out there that can do it, a creative force who could who could actually prove the afterlife, maybe it's Hideo Kojima. I like to think of the him with Microsoft executives and translators, and he's carrying around a Microsoft Kinect that was never released, trying to scan for ghosts. For those that don't get that joke, if you look up Ghost in the Xbox Kinect, because that thing was always on all the time, which is why a lot of people didn't like the idea of the Xbox One Kinect. It catches some weird images sometimes. So the idea of like Kojima out here with two Kinects, one on each arm, walking around haunted castles and haunted bars, etc., like a Travel Channel host, really makes me chuckle. So let's get into the main topic for today. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite games, kind of the game I've spent the most time with over the years. I don't know if I would put it number one, but it's got to be the one that I've definitely spent the most time with, especially if you talk about going back and playing ROM hacks or playing the multiple versions or completing Pokedexes, and that would be the Game Boy games, the ones that we're going to be focusing on for the majority of the podcast today, which would be Pokemon Yellow, Red, and Blue, specifically Red and Blue. But before we get into there, before we start talking about the Pokemon, we have to talk about the creator himself, Satoshi Tajiri. Before Pokemon, the stage was set by the Game Boy, released in 1989. It wasn't flashy, but Tetris proved that the gameplay mattered more than graphics, that having something that is just fun to pick up and play meant more than high-quality graphics, which to some extent it still does today. Satoshi Tajiri, nicknamed Dr. Bug, grew up catching insects in Japan. The sense of collecting became part of the DNA of Pokemon. He launched Game Freak as a fanzine before turning it into a studio. Tajiri wanted to make better games than the games that he was covering. That spark came when he saw the Game Boy Link cable and thought to himself, what if kids could trade creatures like bugs? This is also why you get so many bug Pokemon in Pokemon, because it is kind of the origins of that. After 6 years of work, Pocket Monsters was born, rooted in the childhood hobby of collecting. Pokemon Red and Green was released in 1996 Japan. Game Freak was small but squeezed miracles out of the Game Boy hardware. When the games hit the West in 1998, green was swapped for blue, the sprites were improved, translations were polished, though some of the English slipped through. The idea of catching, training, and trading was lightning in a bottle. It led to the anime and trading card games, both of which are still massive successes to this day. Later on, after Red and Blue, we would get Yellow. Nintendo leaned into the anime hype that they had also released after the success of Red and Blue, and that gave us Pokemon Yellow in 1998. Pikachu was your starter, following you like Ash in the show. You could also collect all three starters. This aligned more closely to the story of the anime and became one of the first enhanced versions, and kind of led to what we know as ROM hacks now, and we'll get into that a bit. Personally, the first Pokemon game I did pick up was Pokemon Yellow. It is the one that I probably have spent the most time with over the years, but it did make me want to play all of the other versions for their weird idiosyncrasies. The Pokedex itself, the Pokemon that you can capture in the game, as anyone out here who's a fan of Pokemon knows, aren't the same. It's the same as the modern releases like Scarlet and Violet, for instance. And what that basically does is, as a player, it makes you want to invest in a link cable and battle your friends and trade with your friends. There's specific Pokemon you can only get in your Pokedex if you trade them. There's no way around that. They have gotten a little better with that on some of the more modern games. Not necessarily Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. There's still a lot of trading and trade evolutions in those two games, but with Pokemon Home, it kind of makes it easier where you can do a lot of that stuff yourself. Pokemon Home, for those that don't know, is Nintendo's way to upload Pokemon and bring them across games. There was other ways to do this previously, but Pokemon Home being the most recent. But yeah, like Pokemon Yellow, I remember playing it for the first time. And being a fan of the anime, coming home every day from school, watching that bad boy, I actually love Pokemon Yellow. A lot of people had a problem with it because you get Pikachu right off the bat. He, follows you around the entire game unless you force him to evolve, which just feels wrong in Pokemon Yellow. So I followed the path of the anime when I was playing it. I kind of refused to give Pikachu the Thunderstone and evolve him to Raichu. It didn't seem in the spirit of things. It takes you through all of the gyms, the Elite Four. It's still a wonderful game. It's still a lot of fun to play. It's still a game that I spend quite a bit of time with. Now, granted, more of Fire Red at this point. There's lots of great ROM hacks out there for Fire Red, and we'll talk about some of the ROM hacks and what the community's done and some of my favorites. But yeah, I just remember Pokemon taking over, not the playground, pretty much, as I kind of noted earlier, taking over the world. Still to this day, I think that it has outsold Disney. Right, so it's the most popular franchise. It's larger than Mickey. It's larger than Star Wars. And it's crazy. I mean, you look online, you'll see grown men fighting each other over cards so that they can resell them, and that's not great. But that's the impact of Pokemon, right? Like that people can buy these cards and flip the script and resell them, and they're still so highly collectible. There's a new game coming out in a month that I'm sure is going to be nuts. It's probably a lot of reason why people are buying Nintendo Switch 2. But yeah, by the late 90s, I would have been 10 in 98. I remember it just so vividly, like a shift when Pokemon became a thing, right? It wasn't just a game, it was everywhere. You had the anime, you had the cards, you had the toys, you had people with Pikachu shoes and backpacks and folders, and it's something that kind of seemed like a fad, like Beanie Babies, but it never went away, because I think that there's just something beautiful about the idea of collecting these little monsters and trading them with your friends. It kind of created a social community around a video game that we really wouldn't see. Well, I wouldn't see again until Xbox Live, right? Or playing MMOs, where you would have, and the big difference there would even be that you were doing more of this in person with the Game Boy Link cable and talking about battle strategies and, who you thought the best was, who the best in-game team was, battling your friends, and then later on you'll get VGC. It's kind of crazy to try to put in perspective like what Pokemon was then and is now, because it is still massive, whether it's the trading card game or TCG Pocket or collectibles or the video games themselves. Looking at like VGC tournaments and seeing how massive that is in comparison to when they first started holding those things. It's really, really crazy. But you get some kind of you've made it when churches start calling your characters demonic. That's usually how you've busted into main culture, when there's people out there that are saying they're trying to take over the world with these evil things, or thinking the Japanese are trying to take over America. I mean, to the point where you get a South Park episode called Chin Pokemon, which is the plot of that episode being the kids are addicted to Chin Pokemon with subliminal messages tied into the anime for them to buy these toys, and the toys are convincing them that they need to bomb Pearl Harbor. It is only stopped by the parents becoming into Pokemon. And what's really, really weird is, that would be a normal fad if adults started getting into it. But with Pokemon, it's almost been passed down at this point. A lot of my friends that have kids have brought either the collectibles or the games into their lives, the lives of their kids. It's kind of been passed down. It's fun to see. I wish that the trading card game itself wasn't so tied up in collectibles, and that got even worse during COVID across all card collecting, if we're being honest. As a hockey card collector myself, I can clearly say like that I kind of got out of card collecting again after getting back into it during COVID, because prices of everything shot up and you would have people buying whole cases, and then you get into the new online fad or thing that people like to do, which is case breaks, where you randomly are drawn into a number, or they open a specific pack tied to your number. It's kind of a weird betting system that's circumventing, busting packs, as they like to call it on YouTube. It's unfortunate because I think there's a lot of fun there. And it's almost like Pokemon should do 2 separate releases. One that's the actual trading card game, set those decks differently, and then one that's collectible cards, and try to split that market up a little bit more. But in the meantime, the video games are still out there for everyone, just like they were for me. And I'm really looking forward to the new release. And I think it's going to be a ton of fun when that comes out. And much like Scarlet and Violet, I will probably 100% the Pokedex and spend a good amount of time playing it. And I kind of brought up some of the ROM hacks here, so I want to talk about a few of my favorites. If for those that aren't aware, Fire Red and Leaf Green basically revived the classics of Red and Blue in 2004. So newer graphics, a better entry point for newcomers, just kind of some quality of life things. But since then, fans have kind of kept these original games going with ROM hacks. And basically what a ROM hack is, it's taking the original game and tweaking it to either add new stories, add additional Pokemon to kind of catch up with where the series is, or just change the overall gameplay. And a few of my favorites, and ones that I think that are most that are must plays if you're a Pokemon fan. The first being Pokemon Fire Red Rocket Edition. You essentially get to play as a Team Rocket grunt. It's a grittier Pokemon story. You have the ability to steal Pokemon after defeating a trainer, and that plays into the game and plays out throughout, where you have a bounty based on how many Pokemon that you've stole. You could pay off the police as you gain more money to make that bounty decrease, or to make it go away so that you're not such a criminal. But essentially, you've aligned yourself with Giovanni, and Giovanni is in... There's a Kanto War. There was a Kanto War that spun out Lance in the Elite Four, and he's kind of taken over the government as whoever is the Pokemon champion basically runs the region. And it ties into Red and Blue, the characters better known as Ash and Gary if you're more familiar with the anime, but it ties into them and the relationship with Professor Oak in kind of a battle of power across a region. And it makes you feel for Team Rocket. Team Rocket kind of gets a different bag here. They're not just an evil criminal organization. They're more like they're almost more like Rebels in Star Wars, honestly, if you wanted a comparison as far as how the story goes. It's a darker story. A lot of fun. There's another Rocket edition out there. It's by Dragon's Den. It was originally only in Spanish. It has been translated recently. It is a similar story, but different. Different in the sense that it is more about expanding the gameplay. It is a lot harder than Pokemon Fire Red Rocket Edition. Both are great. A lot of fun to play. I will say that Dragon's Den Edition has Mega Evolutions. It has Team Rocket Experiment Evolutions. It has all sorts of new things. I will try to drop that into the description of the show for anyone out there looking for it. I will try to list all these out there, as well as the video from Bind in the description of this podcast. But yeah, it's a pretty in-depth game. I think I've played about 60 hours of that game, and I'm at the Sevi Islands. So it actually adds in additional maps from Fire Red and Leaf Green, some things that weren't there in those base games, and they're definitely not there in the Rocket Edition. The Rocket Edition is more of a self-contained story. But yeah, both great. If you're looking for just a brutally hard competitive AI game, Pokemon Radical Red is out there. It forces you to think more like if you're playing an online Pokemon battle or a VGC battle. Definitely another one that I would recommend. Now I want to talk a little bit about my favorite in-game team for Pokemon. Now, that being said, there is no perfect in-game team. You can kind of beat the game with any team you want because you can level to oblivion and then face the Elite Four. It depends on how much time you want to spend in the game. But if you're looking for something that can easily get through the Elite Four at their similar level, I would go with Alakazam. He's his unmatched psychic power. He's got blazing speed. Hits like a truck with once you get the TM Psychic. Definitely needs to be in your lineup. That does require a trade. If you're playing a ROM hack, a lot of times they will just evolve at like a set level like any other. So that might be the way to play it. If you're looking for something like that where you don't have to trade, you can also trade yourself in a lot of the emulation devices. But if you're playing the original, if you're playing on original hardware, you might need 2 Game Boys and a link cable to do that trade because it is worth having Alakazam. Lapras, really, really annoying to get, in my opinion, but very bulky, covers your ice and water weaknesses, kind of makes that a non-factor. Executor, Grass Psychic, with tons of status moves that you can apply. I think that I'm pretty sure I could get through the entire Elite Four with just Executor with the right move set if I wanted to spend time to do that. I have done that in the past with Starmie. Believe it or not, Starmie can full carry you through this if you really wanted to. Snorlax, very tanky, very heavy attack. If you're playing any of the ROM hack versions, you'll get additional moves. If you get Belly Drum and get that set up, then he can pretty much sweep all of the Elite Four. Zapdos, if you need a flying type, electric type, that's usually my go-to unless I'm playing Pokemon Yellow, then I will slot in Pikachu into that role as just part of my team as far as an electric Pokemon goes. And for those out there that love the Safari Zone, the absolute last team member that you need is Tauros. Tauros is very, very fast and can be a physical sweeper. That gives you a very balanced offense, defense, and speed in Gen 1. Psychic moves, psychic types in general were very, very dominant. If you were trying to play your friends and just putting out your favorite Pokemon and they had a Alakazam on their team, you're probably going to get wiped pretty hard. A lot of the ROM hacks kind of fix that a bit. You get dual typing like you have in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. So if you're looking at going back and playing one of these games and you want to feel nostalgic, I would say, look at the Fire Red edition and then look at some various different ROM hacks. I mean, there's tons of places out there, especially. And if you have any questions on emulation, and maybe you've never done it or you have questions about ROM hacks, feel free to reach out to me. You can hit me at Christopher Ray Patton at gmail.com or christopher.r.patton on Instagram. And I'll check those comments and see. So, not to keep you guys here forever, it's kind of a shorter one, but this is the first one. There will be more. We will have guests. We'll be doing some music reviews and more talking about video games more in depth. It's kind of hard to talk about something with, shooting it into a wall, but hopefully this was a little entertaining. Maybe you learned something, maybe you didn't. But looking back at how this scrappy little Game Boy project came one of the biggest franchises in history it's always fun. It's always a fun trip down memory lane. The DNA of collecting, battling, and trading hasn't changed. It just keeps evolving, and we'll see even more of that in games like Arceus that's more open world, and the upcoming ZA, which seemingly has a similar play style of Arceus as far as being able to move your trainer around as you battle. But thanks for joining me on this trip back to Pallet Town, so to speak. Next time we'll probably be covering Metal Gear Solid. And that will be a much longer, much more in-depth podcast. And maybe by then we'll have some more news on Kojima and whether or not he's caught a ghost or caught footage of a ghost or has actually caught a ghost like he's a Ghostbuster. I guess we'll find out. But until then, I'm Chris Patton, and this was the Patton Report.